Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us to stay curious today. And on our green screen is the beautiful final orbiter of our shuttle fleet, OV-105, that replaced Challenger Endeavour with the OUR, just like the English pronounce it. We're going to talk about the Alpha and the Omega of Endeavour, its history, the first and final flights of Endeavour occurring in the month of May. Of course, those are STS-49 and 134. We're going to look at that in a little bit of detail and a little tribute to Endeavour there. A $2 billion investment for America at the time. And then we're going to do a little bit of stargazing at the end. We hadn't done any of that in a while. We're going to look at the crow that's flying around in your backyard skies. So first, a shout out to Jessica Galloway, our Trekkie Techie. She's in here trying to troubleshoot our problems that we've been having, and we thank everyone for sticking with us. And of course, nothing will happen today since she's in here, but if we do have a glitch and we do go down, we'll come back, okay, like we usually do, but we need to solve whatever problem's going on with our shows here as we are into our 817th episode of Stay Curious. Thank you, Marty Winkle, for being with me on this journey, now in its fourth year, and thanks to our executive director, Karan Conklin, and the whole board of directors for wanting this program to continue. So let's kick it off. I'm going to hit the image eye, and fingers crossed, and we're going to have a happy birthday there to Mr. Brewster Hopkins Shaw Jr. was born May 16, 1945 in Cass City, Michigan. Now, Dave Stange knows where Cass City, Michigan is probably, but I don't. He's a one-time pilot and a two-time space shuttle commander, which always impresses me. Of course, his one-time flight was with the great John Young on his sixth and final space flight as commander of Columbia on STS-9 and Space Lab in 1983. So Shaw was the pilot beside John Young there, and I'm sure he did a good job, so he got promoted right away to a commander of two space shuttles, STS-61B Atlantis, and then 28 Columbia, Department of Defense mission. So, Marty, you said that you have done long marathons or running with Brewster Shaw in there. I think Bob... who am I thinking of? Our friend of the museum, Bob Springer, was also part of that STS-28 crew. So two of your buddy runners there. You want to comment about Brewster's birthday, 78?
Well, comment about his birthday?
Or just you ran with him, you said.
I didn't run with him. I used to put on a race for United Space Alliance called Beat the Boss.
Uh-huh.
And the idea was to beat all the bosses. And Brewster was the fastest boss out there. And I used to try and slow him down with a shirt that was too big, or sew in some sand into his shirt to try and weigh him down. And, he took it very well, although any attempt I made to try and slow him down didn't work. He still wound up running about 18:30 on a 5K on the beach, which was pretty good.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for chiming in about with that, Marty, on our UCAC family microphone there. Yeah, Brewster was the COO of United Space Alliance from 2003. Not sure if he was to the end of the program there, but had management jobs and a very important behind-the-scenes figure, I'm sure, with Rockwell, one of the other companies he worked for. So happy 78th birthday there, 78 years old, Cass City, Michigan, Brewster Shaw. So, as promised, we love our space shuttles of May. 10 shuttles of May flew in the history of the 30-year program that had, we had 65 tickets punched. By that, I mean 65 seats were filled during the month of May, but only 60 different people. 5 astronauts took extra flights in May, had multiple flights. And celebrating Endeavour, it had 3 of the flights there. STS-49, which was launched the 7th of May, 1992, and several of our museum good friends, Kathy Thornton was on that, and Bruce Melnick. We thank them for their support of our museum. That was the maiden flight of Endeavour, also the first shuttle to use a parachute when it landed on the runway as a drag chute to slow it down. And then, of course, we celebrate today the launch of Endeavour on its last flight. I need to consult the scroll there. Trekkie techies in their studio here. And as I wanted to see how many flights Endeavour made, I have not committed that to memory yet. 25 for OV-105. 25 flights, 299 days in space for Endeavour. So let's look at her here. As we look at a chart that shows in Today in Space History, on May 16th, we have STS-49, 125, 132, and 84. And 134 in space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orbiters orbiting the Earth this date in space history over a string of 30 years. So we like keeping up with that, and something that I like doing is messing around with figures like these. So hopefully one day you might see this in a little booklet that we'll sell you at the American Space Museum. But let's look at Endeavour. This was, of course, the only time 3 astronauts were on an EVA and captured that Intelsat. That had been Towit, Hebe, and Akers did that. Beautiful patch. Actually, President Bush had a contest to name Endeavour, and 25% of the names were Endeavour. They chose a middle school in Mississippi and a high school in Alabama, I believe, that their flag colors are what's above the ship there. Don't quote me on what I just said about what schools were from where. Don't have my notes on that, but that's basically the gist of it. The Usiak brothers have documented Endeavour many times, and here's one of their beautiful pictures of it on the launch pad. Once again, O-U-R is how to spell it the British way. And there's one of the beautiful launches of it that the Usiak brothers of the STS-49. It's a maiden flight, which was almost 9 days in space, and it was, like I said, the first use of a drag chute, first shuttle mission to feature 4 EVAs. It had the most EVAs of 25 hours of accumulated of any, and the longest at the time, 8.5 hours. And so quite a mission back in the day for 49 in 1992, 31 years ago. And then today we celebrate the launch of the last flight of Endeavour. And this design emphasizes the alpha magnetic spectrometer, obviously a science-looking thing there that was deployed in space, a very significant milestone in physics, this instrument is. And they attached it to the International Space Station. The launch occurred at 8:56 a.m. and the penultimate mission of NASA's Space Shuttle program, the 25th and last flight of Endeavour. It is, of course, now in the Los Angeles Science Museum. The flight delivered the alpha magnetic spectrometer and a logistics carrier to the ISS. Mark Kelly, just inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame. We'll see a picture of him, was the commander, his 4th and last flight. What a beautiful launch that is. I know, Marty, you're probably torn to use that as a green screen, because what an angle. Mobile Launch Platform 2 that we celebrated there. And that's just an awesome shot there of the last flight of Endeavour. There it is in the when it was revealed at Kennedy Space Center for the first time. $2.5 billion spacecraft, brand spanking new. Maybe if you're a space worker and watching Stay Curious, you're in the crowd out there, Mr. Terry White, our shuttle garage manager. And of course, looking at Endeavour in the vehicle assembly building, which is our Devil's Tower around here, the VAB, with all those wires and everything, cables are connected to this this device right here. This is inside the control cage where our friend Dan McCune, in fact, Dan thinks that might be his hands on the left there on grappling this thing. But you're way high up, and it's an incredible experience to lift up the shuttle right there. the whole stack at the same time and put it in its right spot. So, little bonus today. There's a beautiful picture of the Endeavour flag. These flags now sell for over $100 each. If you've got them in your closet, in a drawer, or something like that, they're very popular to own these flags of the 5 orbiters. And here is the crew, Mark Kelly in the middle. They copied some Star Trek movie, or I think it's a Star Trek, maybe a Star Wars there. Trekkie, you know which one?
That's from the reboot, the Kelvin timeline.
There you go. So, but I love the stylish ones that they did, kind of a Hollywood effect to them. I'm sure the astronauts had a lot of fun doing that from just the regular orange pumpkin suit shots that we're used to seeing. Well, here is some pictures that to show the whole collage of Endeavour in there. And this is Mike's photographs there. I'm blanking out there. Mike's last name there, but Mike Killian. Mike Killian. Mike Killian. Thank you, buddy, for sharing what you do at the American Space Museum. And there's a great montage of the rollout, the launch, the last day. On this date, May 16th, 2011, the last time we saw this site from Spaceview Park. And there's a great shot of Endeavour in orbit there. Gives you a good idea how it attaches to the International Space Station, to Earth in the background. Marty, we're going to remember this one. I want to use that as a green screen someday. That's a very not often seen photo. Well, and here is the magnetic spectrometer that's going to be put up there. They actually had to service that. It's so important. It's worth almost $1 billion itself, that little physics experiment there. Well, STS-134 was expected to be the final space shuttle mission if 135 didn't receive funding from Congress. However, in February 2011, NASA stated STS-135 would fly regardless of the funding situation. They had enough money in the bank, so when this 134 flew, they knew they were the next to the last. But again, this is what the configuration looked like docked to the International Space Station. All right, in 2011, so that's 12 years ago, and the next to last time we saw that. Well, last time we saw that, and they took a Russian spacecraft out and moved it around its ports. That's how we got that picture. And again, another beautiful look at Endeavour there. That's the Japanese Kibo module there, as you can see, with the Japanese flag was where its docking port was for Atlantis. So there it is in the Los Angeles Museum. Our friend Doug Forrest, wonderful artist, is just a couple miles from there, Doug, you told me before. And tomorrow, if I remember it, we'll put up Doug's beautiful pencil drawing of Endeavour and all the astronaut signatures that Marty's got around it. Pardon me?
8 of them.
8 of them. You got 8 of them now. Yeah, it looks gorgeous. Should have laid it in here for that, but as always, I can always say I could do this and that on Stay Curious to make it more entertaining for y'all watching out there. So, how are we doing today, Jessica and Marty? Everything's looking good.
I'm not really sure what I did, but
we'll leave some of your DNA here, Jessica, so we can make sure we have a good show. Well, we haven't done a little astronomy for a while, so I'm going to put my stargazing cap on, so to speak, and let's look at something that you can see in your backyard. For backyard astronomy, I've chosen you go out at about 8 o'clock, maybe 9 o'clock at night, and if you were stargazing with me over the winter, from your backyard looking south, you would always see Orion the Hunter usually. Well, Orion's setting right now at sunset, all right? We're in mid-May, so those winter constellations are gone. And when you look up at the sky, I want you to look up to the north, and you'll see the Big Dipper pouring its contents out over the north. It's plain to see. And when you follow the arc of the Big Dipper, you arc to a star called Arcturus. And then, as we used to say, you speed on to another bright star called Spica. So Arcturus is in Bootes the Kite, Spica is in Virgo the Virgin, and you keep going. the curve of the handle of the Big Dipper, Arcturus, a bright red star, Spica is a bright white star, and you keep going, and you're going to run into some 4 stars equal brightness, and they look like a baseball diamond, and that is Corvus the Crow. And here's what I'm talking about, folks. Looking south, there's Spica, bright white star, and all the stars of Corvus are about 3rd magnitude, 2nd to 3rd magnitude. 3rd or 4th is the faintest you're going to see in your night sky. Now, in the whole entire sky is divided up into 88 constellations. And my friends scratch their heads and say, Mark, how in the world do you see a crow out of that? Okay, no way do I see a crow in there. At best, you can see the triangle or of stars on its side there. Not triangle, square, baseball diamond. But you got to remember, thousands of years ago, the ancient people, this was their entertainment. They made their mythology in the sky. They created stories to share, all right? And it was so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face here in downtown Titusville 1,000 years ago, all right? If indeed, I don't think Florida was probably underwater a couple thousand years ago. But my point is, yeah, it's hard to see these mythological creatures, but go along with it and play with it. Some, like Orion, are easy to see, make a figure out of it, and so on and so forth. Well, what we're going to talk about in the sky is Corvus, the crow. Crater to the right is actually the word in Latin for cup. It was a type of cup that watered down wine, all right, because they drank a lot of wine in Rome. And sometimes, so maybe you had light wine and it was in this cup. Not exactly sure how it worked. Then Hydra the snake is along the horizon there, okay? So let's tell the story of Corvus the crow. And it looks, like I said, a rough baseball diamond there. It's associated with the myth of the great Apollo, all right, or Zeus. Zeus, remember, the Romans stole all of Greece's mythology, all right? So they called Zeus their king. In Roman, it's Apollo. Ares is the god of war in Greek. They call it Mars in Roman. So Corvus is associated with the myth of Apollo and his lover, Carinus, the Lapith. Carinus had been unfaithful to Apollo, which was not hard to believe because Apollo was unfaithful to everybody. But when Apollo learned of this information from a pure white crow, he turned its feathers black in a fit of rage. And then that's where we get the raven. Another legend associated with Corvus that a crow stopped on its way to fetch water for Apollo and to eat and ate figs instead. Instead of telling the truth to Apollo, he lied and said that a snake, Hydra, kept him from the water, while holding a snake in his talons as proof. Well, Apollo, realizing that Corvus the crow was lying, flung the crow and the cup and the snake into the sky. He further punished the wayward bird by ensuring it would forever be thirsty, both in real life and in the heavens, where the cup was just out of its reach, as you see here in an 1800s type of sketch in there. In the center, the gold is the cup. Corvus the crow can't drink into the cup, and the snake is all over there. And you see some other of the constellations there. Argo the ship. You see the sextant type of thing there. All these things were thought of and put in the sky by the ancients as their own entertainment. So, Corvus the crow. In other cultures, of course, there's no Apollo in China or the Borneo people. They called it a toucan in the sky. I mean, all kinds of islanders and so forth had the Polynesians. They all had their mythology of what these objects represented. Some of them they put together in different configurations, of course, than we do. So, Corvus the crow. Now let's talk about Crater the cup. But one other interesting thing about Corvus is, as you're looking up at Corvus at night, okay, you might be looking at other people looking back at you. And I'm serious about this because Corvus has 3 stars, and inside the boundaries of Corvus, so to speak, are other stars that are part of it that even telescopes have to see. Well, there's 3 star systems that have confirmed planets going around them, all right? So I wonder if Captain Kirk has been to any of those planets out there, because with Trekkie Techie here helping us out today, we did a program about Star Trek uses real stars and galaxies and places in the universe, and I'm kind of impressed with that. So everywhere you look in the sky, you can be thinking about most of these stars have planets going around them. We've discovered 5,000 planets orbiting around the closest 3,000 stars to the, or maybe even 2,000 stars closest to our Earth. So on to Corvus the Crow, the crater there, a little side note about crater, is it's, you're not going to really see it very well. All right, it's one of the smallest constellations. It's a Latinized version of the word cup. There you again can imagine them in the sky, so you can see the Corvus, the 4 stars of it, just kind of to the right. Any stars you see over there are crater. The mythology of it, like I said, was it was the cup that Apollo flung up into the sky. Hydra is a very important type of creature in the mythology. Hydra the snake. And then as you see things in this sketch, you see the Sombrero Galaxy is a very famous image by the through telescopes, and now the Hubble does look like a sombrero. And then there's a Ghost of Jupiter nebula near crater. These are the what we call the dark sky objects that I stay up late looking at through my telescope, and a lot of people in astronomy clubs take pictures of. So Corvus the Crow crater, there's about how it's going to look to you at night there. Can you see those 4 stars of the square of Corvus? Marty, I don't know if he can or not, but I'm not making fun of anybody. It is challenging to say, oh, right, really? Yeah, thank you. That's Corvus the Crow right there. And then to the right is the stars that you see there of craters. So now you know. And so thank you, Chow and Zan, for watching. Doug Forrest, Bill Whiting, glad that you're back safe, Bill, in Michigan. And thank you for your contribution to the American Space Museum, as well as your volunteer help. Can't wait to see Bill again, can we, Marty? Cynthia Rossi, Tom Usiak's watching, Craig Donaldson, Robert Law is up there in Dundee, Scotland, and Corvus the Crow might be below your horizon up there in Dundee, Scotland, because you got to remember this is a southern looking, and the higher up north you go, it's going to pull the sky down. And Dave Stangy and Carlton Bailey, of course, staying curious with us today. So thank you, everybody, for watching today's show. And Jessica Trekkie Techie helping us mine the minefield here. And we want everybody to think about, we had Mother's Day, and you know I'm on a kick to think about Mother Earth out there. And do what you can to keep our planet alive for another 2 or 3 billion more years out there, as we look at a beautiful photograph taken by the GOS-18 satellite. That's the new satellite launched a year ago on the Space Coast that is providing a lot of weather updates out there. So, well, thank you, everybody, again. We're going to come back tomorrow, Wednesday, with some Hump Day astronomy news. And we probably won't have a guest this week as we make sure that our program is running back up to snuff there. So thank you, everybody. And I am Mark Marquette saying that I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.